Football show. Apologies for being late. We were just talking about being bald and how jealous we were of Jack's hairline. So I hope you're all doing well. Please do smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, get your comments in, and of course hit the notification bell. And while you're there as well, make sure you subscribe to Ought Know Better, Joe, Leeds United The View, and of course City of Leeds Fans with Jack. It's your lunchtime crew. Today we're going to be debating the deserters. That's what I've decided to call them. Should we welcome back the deserters? And the reason being is because last night I was on Twitter, couldn't really sleep, and there seems to be this narrative going around that Max Wöber's going to return. Now, straight away, this gets my back up. Just because Mönchengladbach aren't ready to sign him doesn't mean he's going to return anyway, in my opinion. But then I started to get into debates with people saying I needed to grow up because I told Max Wöber to F off. And someone says, you need to grow up. These players should be given a chance. They left. It was in the best interest of the club, etc., etc. And my opinion is, and I have to be careful, and I have to maybe go, well, Joe, you said the same about Nonto, so I do want to try and have some sort of, a discussion around it. Be interesting to see what the lads think. But right now, my opinion is that none of them should come back. It's like, I tell you what I'll do. Like, for me, I'm enjoying football again. Yeah, for me, I'm enjoying football. It's making me happy, and I don't want that tarnished. If we were to get promoted, it's almost like, it's glory supporting in a sense. It's like, well, they've gone back to Premier League now, so now it's going to suit me, so I'm going to come back. And whose positions are they going to take? Will it put noses out of joint with the current crop? And to be honest, there seems to be this notion that Max Wöber was good. I still stand by the point that it was shit. I don't think Brendan Aronson, I called him the Rizzler paper. I don't know who else. Rasmus Christensen, for me, probably the worst right back, or one of the worst right backs the Prem's ever seen. I don't know who else there is in there. There is many more, but I think they're all whack, if I'm being totally honest. So that's my opinion on it. And I was hoping to maybe get some difference of opinions, but it seems the majority of fans are on this, right? I did run a poll. On YouTube, 89% of people said no, they shouldn't return. And on Twitter, 88% of people said no, they shouldn't return. So it seems to be the general consensus is, yeah, this is pretty conclusive, get them gone. That's my little rant over. Jack, I'm going to come to you, mate. What are your thoughts on the deserters, as we're calling them, or rats, or whatever you want to call them?
Well, I think you need to grow up, Joe. No, I think to be fair, like with the Nonto thing, he didn't actually go, did he? I think everybody can get over a little bit of like kicking off and whinging, and you don't really know what's gone on behind the scenes. When we were talking about Farke the other day, we all alluded to the fact that he'd have probably left. So but you can get over that pretty quick. For me, if they come back in, just because I'm obviously, like we all are, Leeds fan, I will grow up, but I'm not going to grow up before I'm asked to grow up. Do you know what I mean? I don't want them back. If one of them comes back in, my only worry is because they'll just get rid of them to anywhere, won't they? If Farke don't want them, but my only worry is if they do sort of dig their heels in a little bit, because they're not all set to leave. Either some of them are on till end of 27 and stuff, aren't they? So we might struggle to actually get them out the door. But because Aronson worries me, like where's Aronson going to go? And I don't know. Why don't Mönchengladbach want Wöber? Is it because they've realised that he's
money?
Well, yeah, and he's not
like I think Leeds want like 15 million, maybe. I think
11, isn't it? The same as we paid for him. I think I've seen that we want our money back on him.
They've hit a financial crisis, and because of his performances, and he has done very well over there. Because of performances, other clubs interested in him, and their worry is if Leeds go up, they won't be able to afford him. That's where this is coming from. It's not that they can't afford him now. We'll get to that in a minute, though. Yeah, but that's why.
Yeah, so, well, that's, to be fair, that's pretty much my overriding thought with it. I just think if they come back, I'll try and get behind it. There's obviously all young lads have gone out as well, aren't they, on loan? Which would be interesting to see what happens.
That's not the same, though, is it? Like,
no, it's not at all. No.
Yeah, someone put in the comments there, Greenwood, JB, are they not loan rats? No, they're not. It's totally different. We're loaning them out. It's like calling Luke Ayling a rat. They stayed.
They're going out for development.
There were surplus to requirements at this time. Whereas, if we're being honest, probably at the start of the season, Farke would have said, yeah, I'll keep Wöber. yeah, I'll keep Aronson, yeah, I'll keep these players, and they didn't give him the option. Some were worse than others and said, yeah, we'll stay, because Voba's on record as saying that, and then fecked off anyway. So it's totally different to say
the
that.
young lads have gone out on the basis of the club looking after them, haven't they? The club are trying to give them minutes. It's a mutual agreement that they want minutes. It's good for them to get minutes. It's good for the clubs that they're playing. You know, it also puts them in market window a bit as well, doesn't it? For long term, if we don't want them, but that's completely different. It's not the same.
There's different brackets to loans, full stop. Like, you've got young players, you go out to get minutes, and it's part of their development to play at a higher level, because you can't get, and it's usually good sides that loan these players out. Like, average sides are not loaning out their young players; they're playing them because that's all they can afford. Good sides who have better players will loan these players out, so they're not sitting on the bench, sitting in the reserves. They're actually going out and getting minutes at a higher level to develop them. You see with players, they'll go League One first, then Championship, then they'll get their crack at teams in the Premier League. And then there's the other end of the scale, which is the lads that are 30 plus who are coming to the end of their contracts. The club has given them contracts, and now they're not at the level that they were at before. The club needs to do right by them because they've been loyal to the club, so they get them a chance to go out, get some minutes, and maybe get a new deal for a new club. And then there's this bracket in the middle, which are these players, which are in a brand new bracket that didn't exist before this year.
Yeah, no, that's fair. So, listen, I've not had a chance to watch this. I haven't had a chance to watch it. But last night, Gabe was making some fair comment about how beneficial for the club it was for the loans, and don't treat them all as rat. My point would be, in each case, high-profile case, from what we know, Leeds United weren't the ones pushing this. You know, they weren't the ones pushing this. They didn't. So Max Voba didn't say, I want to stay, and the club went, no, you're going. Brendan Aronson didn't say, I want to stay, and the club said, no, you're going. All these players were given a loan contract incorrectly. And again, I'm not privy to any inside information, so I may be massively wrong. And there will be some cases where it did benefit maybe the football club financially. But I'm telling you now, if they'd have gone to the 49ers and said, I wanted to stay, they'd have kept them. Because they've kept Gio Rutter, who they got offered about 20 million plus for from Dortmund. They kept Somerville, who they got offered 20 million for from Burnley. They kept other players, went and spent £7 million on Ampadu. Would they have done that if Adams would have said, I'll stay? I would argue not. You know, so Joe Rodon even, if Max Voba stays, does Joe Rodon come in on loan? He was expensive. I would argue not. So this notion that, well, we don't know. Why is it all of a sudden changing? Is it because you're reading and believing bullshit stories that they might come back? I will say now, hand on heart, I genuinely believe none of them will return. Farke's on record as saying, if you don't want to be at this football club, you're not going to be here. He is not going to let someone walk through the door who's gone, I've just had a jolly up in Germany and Spain for a year. Now can I come back to a winning side? He's going to say, no, get out. Get out. And so he should. So that's my thoughts on it. Anyway, Luke, do you have anything to add, mate?
Yeah, I think you're spot on, mate. I think the where you mentioned there around them going up to the 49ers, and Marath was quite. He's on record actually as saying that we won't be making those mistakes again with regards to contracts. So those players would still be Leeds United players. Either they would be Leeds United players, or they would have been sold. You know, they would have been as black and white as that, as cut and dry. So, yeah, absolutely. With the players that have gone out on loan, I think they're almost different level of rat. To be honest, I think you've got king rats, like proper king rats, like your Sinistera, who you know. We're going to find the club, and Jack Harrison, who's left his mates of however many years from a club that's made him who he is today. And then you've got people like Max Wober, who I probably wouldn't consider as much because he only spent 6 months here. You know, he came at a time when the club was struggling, and he knows nothing else. You know, he's not got arguably any ties to us. He spent the best part 3 or 4 months with us. But I'm not saying I would by any stretch have any of them back. I don't think. I think that ship has sailed. I think firstly you've got to think not only what the fans think, because ultimately that is important, but I think what sort of message is that sending to the rest of the dressing room? They were too good for us then, but now they're not. Is almost the message they would be sending, you know, to players who've stuck here and ground it out in the champ. Look, and we're talking hypothetically, we still haven't been promoted. You know, we could arguably still be playing championship football next season. I hope we're not, for obvious reasons. But if we are, then we're having a completely different conversation because most of them won't want to come back then.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think in terms of rat levels, I've got different levels that and people I dislike more than others based on the way they've left. But I don't feel any of them deserve to be back if we do get promoted. I don't think they deserve a slice of that pie. Other than the young lads that have gone out to get minutes on loan, it's a completely different situation. So yeah, and I think just to know on because I know somebody or someone will mention about Willie Nonto at some stage. His was very similar to start with. Now he had an option then to either go back on his word and work and actually be part of something with Daniel Farke, or he had an option to be a Luis Sinisterra. That's the difference. Look, he didn't want to be here, but the reality is he is here and he has worked hard and he's changed that opinion, not only from the fans, but more importantly on Daniel Farke and the rest of his teammates. So yeah, I think that's the big differences for me.
Joe, can I throw a few bits on that as well?
Yeah.
You said you wanted me to be on today because you wanted a balanced approach. But
Yeah, I've starred comments as well to do that so we can have a discussion.
I'm of the opinion that I don't want them back. That's my opinion. However, to try and put a lot of this into context and be a little bit more logical about it and less emotional about it is, first things first, these players all negotiated a contract that had a loan release clause in it. And to be very clear, I spent all the year arguing with people that these loan clauses are for the length of their contracts, not for one season.
Yeah.
So, and people told me I was wrong. In the last 6 weeks, nearly all of them have come out that they still have these clauses next season again. So, to be very clear, you do not put that clause in your contract unless you want an out. Right? That's the first thing. That tells me you're not planning on sticking around for long if you have the option. Or you had no interest in coming to the club in the first place unless you had a clause like this that got you to get out of the club. Which again then tells me that it wasn't Leeds United you were coming to play for. It was Premier League money you were coming to play for. And the club you played for was irrelevant. But just in case it went tits up, you were putting in a clause that meant that you could get out of that deal. The other narrative that was said around it was this loan clause was agreed by Radrazani and Orta in order to offset the clause of a 60% wage cut should Leeds get relegated. Right? So they insisted on this. The deal is, if a club could pay your full wages, you could go. Now, Leeds weren't paying crazy wages for these players in the Premier Division because Leeds didn't have that money in the Premier Division. These players were all brought in from mid-table, either top-tier sides like Serie A, La Liga, mid-table sides, or top sides in mid-table leagues like Austria Bundesliga, okay, like Aaron's saying that, right? These weren't world beaters that came in. Sinisterra was the outlier, and he came in with an injury history that we saw full version of what that injury history looked like last season, and has already started to go off the boil at Bournemouth. So there's some context there. The other part around this is, and to Jack's point, and I'm with Jack 100% on this, whoever puts a Leeds United shirt on, I will get behind.
Yep.
From that point, when they put the Leeds United shirt on, right? Because if they're successful, we're successful. My argument against these players is simple. They weren't successful. They proved they couldn't do it at the Premier Division with Leeds. They proved that when a fight was needed and they need to knuckle down and dig in for the club, we ended up with a fractured dressing room and players who couldn't wait to get out. We were listening to Robin Cox's agent 6 months before we went down talking about Newcastle and other clubs. We've heard Jack Harrison's agent talk consistently last season about new clubs. All year, we got that from Harrison. He was already planning his exit. Tyler Adams' agent was coming out saying, well, if Leeds went down, he wouldn't be there next season. These are all on record. These are all easy things to find online. These players were talking about their exit strategies before Leeds ever were in a situation where they were confirmed as going down. And remember, at that stage, Leeds were still lower of the mid-table. They weren't in the bottom four. They were still hanging around that bracket above it. And then the arse fell out of it after Christmas, spectacularly. And when the chips were down and they were needed to dig in, they couldn't do it, or they didn't want to do it and were planning their exits, right? Some of them weren't good enough to do it. Some of the players, I would argue, like Brendan Aronson, for example, I think there's a footballer in there, but he could have benefited from a year in the Championship of getting kicked around the place. He could have done with that because that might have actually made him a better player and toughened them up. I think Chris Somerville and Willie Nonto will be better players for this season if we do go up. I think what they've experienced this year, because they've had a hiding in nearly every single game they've played. They've been hacked at consistently, and I think it'll benefit them. The other players, some of them are older, whatever. But if you go through the list of who's on loan at the moment, Darko JB was sent out for developmental reasons. Luke Ayling is at the back end of his career and out of contract at the end of the season. They're giving him minutes because he wanted to play. Diego Llorente wanted to go. Still wants to go, by the way. Rasmus Christensen wanted to go. Jeremiah Mullen's out on loan, but he's injured. Ian Paveda's out of contract at the end of the season. Lewis Bate out of contract at the end of the season and the youth. Max Vober wanted out after saying he wanted to stay. The warrior was the term that was used. He's a fighter and a warrior. The second the battle came, he ran. Straight away, was gone. He came home from the international break. He was on record as saying he wanted to stay, had met with Daniel Farke, and was part of what Farke was trying to do. And that basis, the club agreed for him to do the photo shoots. So he went off and did all the photo shoots. And then as soon as the first offer came in to go to Gladbach, boom, gone. Straight away, dropped tools, left. Brendan Aronson, gone straight away. And has been doing this, by the way, over in Berlin. When he scored his goal that went in off his back. I'm staying here. He's giving all this over there.
They don't want him.
Not your choice. They don't want him either. But not your choice, pal. It's not your choice. Mark Rocca's comments today, and I did it this morning in the news, and I'll go through this for you. Mark Rocca's exact comments, if I can find the note that I wrote down, was interesting. He said, hang on, I'll get the right day first. Too many notes. But this is important because there we go, right? He said, there's a chance, like this year, that if Leeds are not in the Premier League, I can go out on loan again. Let's see. It depends on the situation. It's not in my hands. He's already talking about going out on loan next season again. Now, he said, I hope that they do go up, like I want all my clubs to do well. But he said it. So when it comes back to this argument about do they deserve it, what Luke said, this is really important context. Do they deserve it? Have they done anything to deserve to wear that shirt? Because the last time I checked, and I'm a purist when it comes to Leeds. I've already made my comments clear about if you refuse to wear the Leeds shirt, to me, it's like walking on my flag. It's the same thing for me. If you turn your back on that jersey, you've got a hell of a lot of making up to do before I forgive him. Willie Nantes had 6 months of making up, and he's done it the right way, and he's got his head down, his knuckle down, he's done it right. Same for the rest of them. They came back and did that, fine. But I don't think they have it in them to do that. I don't think the spine is strong enough on these players. So, side before self. I have a real issue with this poster the club did last season of all these players standing beside that big light box that said side before self. All of them left. All of them were self before side. Every single one of them put themselves first. They signed 4 5-year contracts and put a little sneaky clause in there that if it went bad, they weren't going to stick around. Let's remember why we're in the championship. People can say, oh, bad management and bad decisions. Fine. Some of those bad decisions were these players, bringing them in the first place. And some of the bad decisions were these loan clauses. Fine. But these players didn't perform last season in the Premier League. These players, when Leeds needed them, buckled. These players didn't stand up and fight. These players are, if you want to argue the rest of the stuff, I'll give you that, minimum 50% of the problem and the reason why Leeds United are in the Championship this season. And did any of them stick around to help us get back out of the mess that they made? No. So why would we welcome them back into a dressing room of players who have done and worked their asses off this year, and they have worked for it this year, to get Leeds back into the Premier League if we get there? For these that's to swan back in on Premier League money, sit in the dressing room like they've achieved something, sit around these players like they've done something for Leeds, and then go out on the pitch and tell people what they should do. Max Vober will want to be a captain. Never for me. But that man should ever really wear a captain's armband at Leeds, ever. Because he's not about Leeds. He's about himself. All of these players had the opportunity to dig in, to stay with Leeds, and every single one of them took the option to go. They didn't even go to great clubs. Like Union Berlin are struggling in the German Bundesliga. Struggling. Bundesliga are in, Borussia Mönchengladbach.
They were Champions League though, Union Berlin. Yeah.
They were, but they're not this year. And Brendan Aronson can't get into the team. He's still coming off the bench. 65th minute, he came on this week again. Oh, yeah. He's only coming off the bench. Max Vober has had a really, really good season at Gladbach, who are in free fall. And their own owner has said they're in danger of being dragged into a relegation fight. Right? Free fall. The reason they can't, they're talking about not getting, there's another part to this.
What happens when you sack Farke, that, by the way?
But it appears to be the case, and they criticised him finishing 10th last year, and now look what's happening this year. There's a real key point to this as well, though, with these players, because Rock is 1, Llorente is 2, and Vober is 3. These 3 specifically, all of their clubs have now talked about renegotiating the terms of the deals, or the buyout clauses, and there's a reason for that, because it looks like Leeds are going to get promoted, and their loan clauses are no longer active next season if Leeds go up. So now all of a sudden, the chances of them having them on a free again next year, outside of paying their wages, is looking less and less likely. So now they're in a situation where, well, Rocket had a really good first half of the season at best. Then he got pneumonia, and it's kind of knocked the wind out of his sails, which is expected after pneumonia. But there's clubs looking at Rocket in Spain now because he's gone back there and he's done really, really well. So now there's competition. They're not in the driving seat anymore. If Leeds go up, they're not in the driving seat. Now Leeds can field offers. Max Vober's had a really good season in a really bad side. And now there's a lot of interest in Germany and Max Vober. So if Leeds go up, Gladbach don't have that option to take him on loan again next year. Leeds are in control to decide who we can sell him to, at what price we want to sell him to. Diego Llorente, we had an £18 million buyout clause in his deal last year at Roma. And because Leeds got relegated, they got a sneaky another loan. They got him for another year, and now they're trying to negotiate a £4.5 million buyout for the player to then sell him immediately to Paris Saint-Germain for 18 million. Right? This is all out there. There's nothing hidden here. This is not being made up. This is documented stuff.
Why don't we just sell him to Paris Saint-Germain? I don't understand that. Sorry, Joe.
Because we don't have the option till the end of the season.
Right, got you.
That's
and
the
if we
problem.
don't get promoted, we won't even have the option again.
If we don't get promoted, then they can do it. They can buy him for £4.5 million and sell him. And the rest of them, by the way, the fact that Rock has already alluded to this, the rest of them can go back on loan again for another season, and they will. Yeah, they will. All of them will. So why would we welcome these players back to wear a Leeds United shirt when they don't epitomise any of the core values of this football club? None of them. And that's where I sit on this. But to go back to it, if they do put a Leeds shirt on, and if they do work hard, if they do knuckle down, to Jack's point, of course I'll get behind them. But I'd rather not get to that stage. I'd rather never have them in a Leeds United shirt again. I'm very clear on this. I saw James Marsham asking yesterday, would people welcome these players back? No. Because the lads that are here right now deserve to be in the Premier League. They've worked their ass to get there. They deserve the rewards. These lads had their chance and they lost and they walked away. You don't get a second chance. Sorry,
if that isn't worth a like, I don't know. If that isn't worth a like, I don't know what is. That was some image of that, brother. Go on, Jack.
I was just going to make a joke about Rocker, really. But if he's saying that again, does he ever focus on the season that he's involved in then? Or is he just thinking about next season relentlessly? Is that what he's done his whole career? Like, just gone, right, we're 6 months in. I better start thinking about where I'm off next year.
Just a contractor, isn't he? He's just a subby.
You know what, though? You know what the right word for these players is? Exiles has been used quite a lot, but mercenaries is the right term to use for these players because they're not interested in these clubs. None of these clubs. They're all interested in the money. That's it. And I know a lot of footballers are interested in money, and fair enough. Of course. But some players actually want to achieve something like, look at how Conor Roberts talks about Leeds. I mean, he's not like, true. Conor Roberts did it again yesterday. He's put his foot in his mouth with the Burnley fans, where he a couple of weeks ago described Leeds as the first big club he played for. The Burnley fans lost their mind over it. And then yesterday he said about, I scored a goal for Burnley and I put a post on social media and it did reasonably well. But then my missus is doing a video and I get messing around with her and the Leeds fans blow it up completely. He's like, it's just a different level. And you're going, Burnley fans don't like that either because, again, you're saying their club is small and Leeds fan base is huge. So, but he's the kind of player that's like, I'm loving this. I'm loving that it's a big club. I'm loving that it's Leeds. Ampa do the same. Joe Rodon the same. So that's what epitomizes Leeds. People like dig in and fight
fine
for
using
Leeds.
it as like a stepping stone, the club. I don't even mind, they're all bothered. Everybody's bothered about money.
Rafinha did it.
You're all
Rafinha, great example.
He gave us everything while he was there.
Rafinha's better than all of them as well. Yeah, but he came, did it proper, didn't he? And then nobody begrudged him the move. It's like, oh no, you can, because I mean, I'll get a bit of stick for this, but I actually, because I know Harrison were kicking off in the last season a little bit, like Joe said with the agent and stuff. But I have a little bit more. I didn't mind Harrison because I wouldn't have begrudged him a move. He's been here a while. He's put it in for us. We've come up with him. He stayed with us in Premier League. Like he did well for us. He was always quite consistent with us. I'm not saying he's gone too far now, like with what he said this year and like what his mum were banging on about and stuff. I'm just in general.
Jack, you said consistency, and Jack Harrison.
I think he was one of our most consistent players. Yeah,
I'm the same as Jackie. I've been on record as saying in the Premier League, he was the most consistent Leeds United player.
Outside of that 4 month spell in the middle of the season when the weather got bad and he vanished.
Someone who was more consistent than Jack. Putting up 10 goals and assists each season there or thereabouts. No one was doing that. For the
numbers wise, but I mean, actually watching him wise, he wasn't the most consistent. He could be absolutely anonymous for 89 minutes and then come up with an assist or a goal. He was that type of player.
Well, that'll do me in Premier League, though.
He scored as a hat trick against West Ham as well. That's hat trick in the Prem.
I'm not trying to say that Harrison was, blowing the Premier League up, but ultimately, you do remember how bad we were, don't you? It was pretty bad. So anybody that's putting any sort of numbers together is, for me, of some worth.
The thing with Jack
fan,
for
by
me,
the way. Big up, mate.
Yeah, the thing I've got with Jack Harrison was he signed that new contract 1 month, about 6 weeks before the season ended, a new 5-year contract with Leeds United, and that was to include this. That was the only reason, really, wasn't it? Let's be honest, because I think he was still 2 or 3 years left on his old contract, so he'd signed an improved contract that had this clause in. So he's specifically done it for a get out clause.
This is kind of what I'm getting at, though, Luke. I don't. That at some point they have to look after themselves as well, don't they?
Yeah, I get that.
What I'm saying is he's put it in for the club, and then he's done what is best for him, which is I'm now for some reason seeming as I'm coming to Jack Harrison's defence for leaving. I'm not. I have slightly more, and I'll get loads. I know I'll get loads of stick for it because I think my brother would know exactly what I mean. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying like Harrison's my guy or he was the best player in the Premier League. I'm just saying he put it in for the
deserved
club.
it. Is that what you're trying to say? He deserved it. He deserved the move.
I think if he actually,
you wouldn't hold it against him more, so he deserved it. He'd done his time at Leeds, and if he wanted to move on, at least he did.
And they offered him it. It was mutual. It wasn't a gamble. We knew what Harrison was, and we offered him that new contract, knowing that if we went down, he'd probably go. Whereas Wobber and Christensen and all other boys that have turned up, it was a total gamble. They've already wanted their out before they was even in. It just seems.
I think that's what makes it worse for me, Jack, because he's been there through it all with the lads. A lot of his mates still at the club, and to leave them to be there and get to where he is, because we took a chance on him. We gave him that opportunity when he was at City.
And
we took him on loan, didn't we? No, yeah. I mean, I'm not begrudging that. I think he had some good spells when he was at Leeds. I don't think going to Everton is showing that level of ambition of actually wanting, proving you were. Well, what was the benefit other than playing in the Premier League? He was never going to get in the England squad. Let's be honest. Playing at Everton or based on his qualities. So him leaving is simply for monetary value. That's the only reason.
Well, and he's done the Championship. He's come up out of the Championship. At some point, the lad.
He's not a Championship player, is he?
He might have moved, is all I'm saying. If we'd have stayed up, he might have been one of the players that was on a move. He might have done his time with us.
Who is a Championship player, though? He's Ampadu and Rode on a Championship player. They've been quite happy to come down and do it for us.
But
you have to give context because
there's a slight
just
difference.
One second, you have to give context because Ampadu had spent time on loan at different clubs. Rodon wasn't getting game time at Spurs. However, let's say, for example, we stay up, Luke, and Ampadu and Rodon played this season in the Premier League for us and we went down, they would be then classed as Premier League players. But they haven't had the opportunity to show that, I don't think.
I think you need a couple of seasons in the Premier League to say that you're a Premier League player. Same with, what's his name? Your man that's managing Sheffield United at the moment, referring to himself as a Premier League manager. currently, pal.
So let me ask
hang on, just to clarify this, Luke. There's a slight difference for me with Jack Harrison. And I don't want to see Jack back either, but I will say this, I don't bracket him with the rest of them, is this. He has put service into Leeds, to Jack's point. He did help us for 2 seasons in the Championship. He stuck with us to get us out of that. And yes, we did benefit him, but he benefited us during those times as well. I don't think Jack Harrison's a consistent player. I think he goes missing for half of the season every year in the middle, which he's done this year with Everton as well. When the weather gets bad, Jack goes missing. He'll bang you goals on either side of that. So if you're in a run, either side, great. And that's Jack. People will realize that about Jack. But he did give us time in the Premier League. I think from Jack's perspective, Jack, when he signed his new deal last year, he saw this clause being put in people's contracts. So he would have heard about this. And he's put it in as well. I think at the point that Jack was at, is maybe Jack thought, if I get a run at a team that's going to grow, I will get a crack at the England team, but I'd have to be in the Premier League. So he's done that on that basis. So for me, I don't want Jack back. Slightly different reasons, but I don't bracket him with the rest of them, as in, it wasn't the first contract he signed for Leeds and put an out clause in it straight away. Someone else has said about lots of Premier League players have release clauses. They do. Permanent release clauses, not loan release clauses. And that's the problem. If these players wanted to go on permanence, no problem. No problem. Off you pop. But don't go and try and come back in the back door when we get back up again.
Well, that's what I mean. That's again taking me back to specifically about Jack Harrison. Is imagine you're playing football with a group of lads and you've been promoted, you've worked hard. He wasn't the best player in our squad. Let me just put that right straight away.
No, I agree with that.
and he now thinks he was too good to play with those mates. Majority of them were still here, his mates that he'd been through.
Can I throw something back your way, though?
Go for it.
That same group of mates that were coached or managed by someone also tried to sell him in January and changed their mind at the last minute.
We did try to sell him to new.
No, I'm talking about the more of the dressing room. You see, your actual pals. Imagine we get promoted now, and he waltzes back into the change room, having a year in the Premier League and failing pretty miserably. He's not had a great season. He's not done. Everton are still potential. I mean, potentially could still get relegated. Do you know what I mean? We're not talking, it wouldn't be wild, but I don't think they will. But he's not. He's proven that actually. Why isn't he a Championship player? He can't do it in the Premier League.
Well, because this would be my argument. So, because this happens all the time. So, because we watch Leeds every week, you don't necessarily think. I wish I could think of another example other than Jack Harrison, because it'd really benefit me. But basically, if you watched any sort of 11 thing, like, Iwobi or something, he's at Everton as well, doesn't he? That doesn't help.
He's at
Somebody
Fulham,
that
mate.
isn't at Everton, right? That's also like
Iwobi.
Sort of decent, sort of does a bit, sort of always seems to score against your club, maybe does well in 4 or 5 other games. There must be a lot of lads that are actually Premier League standard. You can't, because in the same breath, if Ampadu and Rodon come down a level, and then you're adamant that they can make the step up, well, how does that work when there's 16 teams in the league that, say 14 teams that stay up every year? They don't come down to the Championship level, but they're not putting in any sort of decent numbers. But are they Premier League standard, or is it only what tier of the you've got the Man Cities, aren't you? And the
No, I get where you're coming from completely.
Is that the Premier League, or
I do.
Luton's not the Premier League, is it? Or
they would be doing it.
There must be a couple of them in there that can do it.
Absolutely, but they would be doing it with a club that's motto is side before self, and giving them an opportunity to do it, which we did.
If that's gone in general anyway, Luke. Harrison went to America and stuff, didn't he? He's not. Does he support a football team?
No, probably not. But I think
that's not exclusive.
As a passionate football fan of our football club, that you get players like Connor Roberts, who's been here for 2 minutes, who gets us straight away.
Yeah, but this is the highlight of his career, isn't it?
But to be fair, Jack,
why shouldn't Leeds be the highlight of Jack Harrison's?
Jack Harrison wasn't going anywhere before Leeds took a gamble on him and took him on loan.
Joe.
He'd been at Borough and didn't do it, and they didn't want him back.
But Ampadu's been around and not done it.
No, I agree. I completely agree. The difference,
Look at Calvin. I mean, I know that's not a great example because we're not talking loans, but his career's fallen to bits from leaving Leeds.
I still do think Harrison's a slightly different.
Yeah, to Calvin.
Because again, Joe was right what he said. Leeds did try to sell him. You know, we did try to sell him. Yeah, that was ringing. Sorry.
Let me steer the conversation elsewhere though. Now
keep his man with him as well.
Yeah, we've
she can go.
We've done a lot of chat.
I don't want him back under any certain terms.
Exactly.
It's just I have a slightly feeling. I know you're trying to drag it away, Joe, and I'm desperately trying to drag it back.
I just want to respond to this first of all. He said, Joe, you should be careful who you invite. This is what I was chuckling at. Who you should invite on your show. Joe's completely exposed your shortcomings as a YouTuber. Sorry, Joe. And Joe, you are so professional. Guess what, Barry? I don't give 2 shits, brother.
Hang on.
You know what? No, wait, Joe, let me finish.
True.
Let me finish. you don't come here for professionalism. This isn't Sky Sports. This isn't BBC News, brother. Okay, this is
Get him, Joe,
in his fucking bedroom. If you want to listen to Joe, that's fine. You know, you didn't need to tell me that. You could have just gone on about your day, but you thought you would have like a little dig. Something's going on in your day, so I'm going to say a little prayer for you, Barry Tyndall. Okay, over to you, Joe.
I don't like these comments that put us against each other. I really don't like them. I've had to deal with a few on my channel over the last couple of days. What we do on a camera and what we're like off camera are very different things as well, dog. Are very different things. My background is with a international tech company that I do social media for, so I am very conscious of how I speak at times and what I say. This is an opinion show. Joe's channel is an opinion channel. It has always been an opinion channel. The point of having lots of different people is because you get lots of different opinions. Joe has opened the door for tons of young YouTubers who can't get a crack at this to get a crack at this. And Joe's been massively helpful in getting my channel to where it's gotten to as well. And I wouldn't have gotten to where I got to without doing stuff with Joe, because outside of doing these, I don't really give my opinion on stuff. So my channel will be non-opinionated at all. So I take the compliment. Thank you very much. But this is a really good channel that does a really good shows, regular different shows. And if you look at the numbers that Joe's show brings in, it's a far bigger channel than I'm even at. So I don't like these pushing people against each other. Joe's a mate. And
plus, Baz, get your
foremost.
opinions on that. We haven't seen any of your opinions yet.
Yeah. What I would say, Barry, is if you like Joe and think Joe's not as competent, do not come over to my channel.
Or ours, for God's sake. You'll hate or know better, for God's sake.
God, you nearly made me cry then, Joe. Fucking hell.
I don't like this. I keep saying this. Like, there's a group of Leeds channels that all work together to help each other out. We're all mates all outside of this as well. We all talk to each other outside of doing these shows. You know, there's a core group of certain channels that work together, and we collaborate on stuff together, and we all support each other and all help each other. And it's huge. I think it's hugely important for that. We have a lovely community of people, and I don't like being pitted against the other people. There's other channels that we're not involved with that go nuts with. But the groups that we're all on together, it's like we're all here to support each other.
100%, what a legend. Just while we're on that as well, big up to my main man, Abdul Rahman Al Khalifi, Ramadan Kareem, brother. He says, good afternoon, gentlemen. I am 100% with Joe. Harrison is the only one I would have back. The rest can go.
Are you sending me that super chat then, Joe? Seeing that comment all about me.
It's your appearance fee, mate. It's your appearance fee. Wizardry says they've gone to leagues that suit them. P.S. Hope all is good with your mum and life, bro. Yes, thank you very much, Wizardry. Yeah, the chemo's kicking the shit out of her this time, but she's only got a few more rounds, so hopefully, she'll be all right. I think this is great as well. The Three Owls says definition of a deserter: a person who has physically removed themselves from the control or direction of a unit with the intention of permanently leaving, and that's basically what they've done. We are a unit, and they have removed themselves from that situation. Now, what I do want to try have a chat with towards the second half. Does anyone think the players mentioned can add something? Because I've seen a lot of chat go, Voba could be used as a decent backup. Yeah. My answer to that is Voba's not coming as a backup. But let's say, for example, these players were willing to come in and ride bench or compete for places. Is there anyone you look at? Like, for example, Craig says, what if we can't sell Aronson? Do we chalk it off or do we try give him a chance? So is there anyone in there? I mean, Rasmus for me is a write-off straight away because I think he's terrible. But
not as a centre-back, arguably.
Or wing-back. He's very good as a wing-back, what I've seen.
Not very good at anything, to be
honest. He played quite well for us at centre-back and defensive midfielder when he played there as well.
Actually, that was his best game with CDM, wasn't it? Yeah. That was the best game for us.
So Farke might. Well, I think to answer your question, Joe, is...
Matt, do you know what the mad thing is? Matt Rocco would probably work under Farke.
Yeah, but to answer that question loosely, I suppose, and a little bit marshmallowy or cloudy or whatever you want to look at it, a little bit bland, is if I think that because we've got a proper football coach at the moment, somebody who can coach players to play a particular way in a particular style, that they arguably could all add something, which is scary. For me, I don't think there's anybody that's out there that I think first of all, Farke would find their preferred position quite quickly, or their best position, and I think they've all got qualities, and it sounds absolutely mad because we've just slated them for the last 38 minutes about how we don't want them back and stuff. But I think they've all got something that they could add to this squad. Absolutely, we've got to be a little bit realistic. We're playing at a level below we were playing last season. So if they were playing at this level, they arguably would be standing out. Yes, no?
Yeah, no, I agree. You don't think they would stand out, Joe?
Not all of them. No, I think I disagree with Joe on a couple of bits. I think Max Bober is a good centre-back. I think he's proven it in the Bundesliga this year with a team that's under a lot of defensive pressure on a week-on-week basis, and he's been constantly been talked about as the stand-up player. I'm a little bit closer to him because I have to do a long watch once a week, so I'm constantly watching the narrative on these players. So I think that Aronson, on the parts about Aronson, I think he would have benefited again from a championship season, and then maybe you could have seen something. Arguably, I think he's been played out of position, but I think that's his own fault as well. He thinks he's a 10. I think he's a winger. I think when he played on the wing against Crystal Palace in the first game last season, he was excellent. And then he went back into the 10 and was disastrous. I think he's more protected out wide and he gets a lot more free kicks because he falls over all the time, but he gets free kicks out wide in wide areas. But I don't think now. I think Diego Llorente under Farke would do quite well. His first season at Leeds was very good, but again, injuries are his issues. He had injury problems again this year. The two that are the standouts for me, I think Mark Roca would work very, very well under Daniel Farke's system, and I think Max Vober would add something in defence because we'll need to rotate centre backs as well this year. Going to the Premier Division, we'll have to have more in there. They're the only two for me, but I stick with the initial point of in an ideal world, I wouldn't want them back at the club, but if they did come back, they're the only two that I could see actually being useful. But all of this is kind of a mute conversation because Daniel Farke has already said it. Doesn't want them back.
Yeah,
the club have already said it. In the last 2 weeks, I've covered 4 different stories where Leeds are actively working on selling them. They have already said out loud that they are willing to take a loss on Brendan Aronson because they could possibly make a profit on 1 or 2 others and therefore kind of balance the whole thing out. But they don't look like they want them back. And from all accounts, Leeds seem to be planning for bringing in new players next year if they do go up and building this squad. It's just not a good dressing room dynamic for these lads to walk back in. I just don't. I mean, we heard stories last year of a fractured dressing room. I mean, Liam Cooper comes out after the last game of the season and says, "You don't want to be here, fuck off." Now, there's a reason for that. He didn't just volunteer that information out of nowhere. He didn't just say that because we got relegated. He said that because there was clearly conversations in the dressing room. There was clearly a vibe around the place. You don't come up with that saying out of nowhere after relegation. You come out with something that says we all got to stick together in this and we'll work hard and we'll get back next year. First thing Cooper said was, "You don't want to be here, go." That's not come out of the blue. You bring those players back into a dressing room that's in a positive mindset, that's got promotion, that's on the back of a really impressive season. Again, should have finished the way we hope it will finish. That just goes bang. That's a recipe for disaster. Like, that's going to upset the apple cart. And then if a couple of them get into the team, the lads that got you there will be like, well, hang on a second, we got us here and I'm not going to crack at this. Like, I've done it as a coach. I worked for a team for 3 years to get promoted to a top division in Ireland because I wanted to crack at coaching in that division. And then when I got there, I got replaced. Immediately got replaced by somebody who was asked to manage the reserve team. And I did it for 6 months, but I was bitter. The entire year, I was bitter towards the club and bitter towards the manager, who I don't speak to anymore. And I left the club at the end of the season because I just didn't want to be there anymore because of that. So you do that with professional footballers who that's their job. That's what they've worked for. That's where their heart is at. And you replace them with these guys who will probably go again next year if we go back down because those clauses will still be active. So if Leeds go up and go back down again, if these lads do come back and play next year, they'll go again because they can.
Yeah, it's a good point. Do you have any thoughts, Jack?
Other than, I think Wobber's probably, is that even how you say his name? Wobber or Wobber? I don't know, but
Wobber.
I think he's probably neither. Then it was neither of the way I said it. It was a different way. Which way is it? Oh no, it's not like either. But yeah, he's probably the best one, I would say, of the bunch. What I would say is you can only definitely bring a couple back at tops for me. Like, don't care who they are. Like, ultimately, we've moved house, haven't we? And if like, you're coming back round and everything's changed, you don't want that. They know what it's like.
Mrs. has got a new boyfriend, and you're still lingering about.
Yeah, and you're just chilling in porch.
You're not my real dad.
Doing the washing up and that for them.
Yeah. Making sure they stay. I was going to say stay away, but you probably want them asleep. But so they're going to bring back they know the training ground. They know what they do. They'll have their little spots and what they spent a fair bit of time there. It's not like they don't know the daily runnings of it. So I'd be uncomfortable with them all coming back together. That cannot. I mean, I know they're not all going to come back, but say if 3 or 4 of them come back, that's going to be a little unit that they've got there, aren't they? That they're the outcasts and they're all together doing their own thing. And I don't think it's hard to stink a dressing room out, really. And especially if all these boys that we've currently got are actually, they seem to get on a lot, don't they? And they seem to all be on the same sort of train. It's not, they wouldn't like it either. So it's just unsettling, really. But yeah, in my terms of, I'd probably just say, I'll just call him Max. I don't have to say second name. I'm not mental on Rocker. I take Joe's point that he's probably I can't suggest that I've followed him around, wherever he goes and stuff. But it just seems a bit immobile to me, and I'm reluctant to say again, like on the Harrison thing, if Christensen has one decent performance, I'm reluctant to say that he's more welcome back than Harrison. Do you know what I mean? It's like Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I'm just trying to annoy Luke now, I think.
No, listen, I think, look, there's an argument for some, but some of them are just will never cut the mustard for me. But, like, yeah, we might have to take a loss on a few, but it looks more than likely that if you say you look at a Rocker, for example, we're going to probably make the money back on him. I think we got him pretty cheap from Munich due to his injuries. You've got Max Foba, you're probably going to break even or maybe a little bit on. Llorente, okay, we've had to cut our losses, but go on, Jack.
I get a bit of stick for Llorente, but I actually think Llorente is a properly mint centre-back. I just think he's battered. I just think he cannot cope with playing at the level.
But he's got the massive bozo gene though, hasn't he? Like 1 minute he'll be amazing, next minute he's like kicking his teammate in the air, you know.
I do think he would be, you know, with Spanish's centre back, wasn't he? Ikema's, he's definitely. I mean, I remember that it was a cup game. I know we were playing. I can't remember who we were playing. Somebody whack, and Firpo were killing it, and everybody were on fire, so it was fine. But he played two balls, like two wonder balls, like one real curved and one like. He just struck through the ball like
Leicester City, bro. I remember one as well. Leicester City in the Burgundy kit.
He had some balls in him, like and initially his defensively, I didn't think he was too bad, and then as we crumbled, he really went. Because do you remember when I think it was like Newcastle? He got injured in the first minute or whatever it was. When he was on the way back, everybody was sort of like eagerly anticipating him to get back into centre defence because we did sort of need him, and then as I say, it collapsed and he went totally with it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, I don't want Llorente back. That's not what I'm saying about that.
No, yeah. Definitely not. Look, if we're being honest, 88% on YouTube, 89% on Twitter. I don't think anyone wants these players back, and I'll be glad for it. Just before we finish up, folks, obviously this seems to rile Leeds fans up like no end, and I really don't understand it, and maybe it's because I am very emotional, but I'm gutted for Calvin Phillips to see he's been dropped from the England squad. Now, let me just say and qualify the statement. I'm not saying he deserves to be in there based on performances. That's not what I'm saying because he's barely played. But having known what Southgate's like, i.e. kept faith with the likes of Maguire, kept faith with Henderson, etc. when they weren't performing and stuff, I just felt Calvin would have kept his place. But it shows just how big the fall-off has been, that he isn't even keeping his place on merit, because we've seen that, you know. I'm properly gutted, and I hate this thing of like he went for the money. I disagree completely. Like for me, I think for me, he was always leaving Leeds United that season, like Rafinha. He'd given us his best years, or now what looks like his best years. He was always going to move. He could have gone to a host of clubs, yes, but when Pep Guardiola and Manchester City come knocking, who've just signed Haaland, and they're going to give you X amount of money, that's probably set his family up for life, who've come from fucking nothing. He's a Leeds lad. I genuinely hate the stick that he gets, like calling him a mercenary and all this sort of stuff. I genuinely believe, and this might be a hot take, I said this to Ash earlier on as well, if the finances work for the football club, and this isn't what I do want it, by the way, but this isn't what I'm not saying I want this to happen. If it did happen, I would be on board. I think the club will try get him back. And we can have a conversation of like, who does he start about and all this. We all suddenly think he's a shit footballer, by the way, which isn't true. Calvin Phillips is a home bird. He never left to go to Villa. He's gone to City. It hasn't worked out. He's now in London. He misses his family. He probably misses his dad because he probably can't get to go visit him as often as he can. All these different things affect Calvin the lad, Calvin the boy, because that's what he is almost. I feel like I'm his dad at this point. But for me, I'm gutted with the way that he's been like cast aside, and I think he's in the modern era, he's up there for me. You know, we loved that guy. We worshipped him. Now everyone's going, he's fucking shit. He's a mercenary. He's this. It upsets me. But yeah, that's just my thoughts on it. And believe me when I say, get used to the idea, because this loan's a stinker at West Ham. He'll go back to City. What they're going to do with him? It won't surprise me financially if it works that Leeds United try make it work. Sorry, go on, Joe.
There's a couple of different angles on this as well with Calvin Phillips. Before Bielsa came in and the change of system, Calvin Phillips was number 8 or number 10. And I remember being at games quite regularly where the conversation was, this kid's not going to make it. And Leeds are looking at options. There was him and Alex Mowat were in the team together, and Alex Mowat was the one that was going to make it, and he was one that wasn't going to make it. That was the narrative. Calvin wasn't setting the world on fire. He scored a couple of goals. He was very young, but it didn't look like he was going to be able to do enough. Bielsa comes in and finds a system that fits Calvin perfectly as a quarterback, a single pivot, an out-and-out number 6. Calvin's biggest problem is no one else plays that system. Calvin doesn't suit a double pivot. He doesn't suit it at West Ham. Clear as day, he doesn't suit it down there. Pep never really trusted him to play him ahead of Rodri, which, to be fair, the Man City decision is not just a financial decision, it's not just a player decision. You have to have X amount of English players on your books as a football club. Man City have a history of trying to find the best young British players because they're the best and stick him on the bench. They ruined what's his name? Plays for Luton now, not Barkley. Ross Barkley?
No, he was at Chelsea.
Yeah,
Barkley.
Chelsea. Sorry, but that's a similar situation. Brought him in, sat him on the bench, ruined his career. Had a lot of progress, was going the right way. Goes into a club that needs to tick a box and sits him on the bench, and he doesn't develop. Calvin went there to win trophies. Calvin went there to win medals, and you can see his reaction when he got his Champions League medal and he got his Premier League medal. Play or not, you could see the kid's reaction to that, and that was lovely to see how happy he was to get them, and I was delighted for him. My biggest problem with the situation is Daniel Farke plays with a double pivot, and it doesn't suit Calvin Phillips. So unless there's a change of system, Calvin Phillips doesn't fit that system anymore. That's not to say Calvin Phillips
with Rice in England.
It's a slightly different system though, because they alternate, and Southgate's clever with that. When Rice is the deeper sitting one, he comes right in as a 6, and Calvin nearly goes into a 10 position. And then the other way around, Calvin sits right in front of the back 4, and Rice steps on because Rice can do 6 or an 8. They complement each other very well. But the problem is, if you're the defensive midfielder in a double pivot, which he would be, like Ampadu has been for Leeds, like Gruev has been for Leeds, it's a different system. You're relying on being slightly left or slightly right. You're not dead center. You're not starting the moves. And Calvin's biggest attributes are his tackling ability, so to win the ball back when he's 1v1 or if he's trying to track back if someone that's got beyond the midfield. He's very, very good at that. And his distribution from long ball position, so his angled balls into space, which he's got a wand of a foot. He's a beautiful passer of the ball. In a double pivot, it's not always done that way. It's a short passing game. It's a very different type of game. You're not looking to get wingers into the game necessarily straight away. So it doesn't necessarily suit him. I've always had this take. Myself and my brother have these conversations all the time with players. If you're a manager of a club, if you're buying a player like, say, Calvin Phillips, you can argue for different strikers as well. You've got a choice. Either you buy him to fit the system that you've got. So you buy a specific player who fits a specific role in your side and how you play. And if that's not the case, then you change the system for the players that you've got or the players that you're bringing in. You go and you play to their strengths. The problem Calvin has had is with West Ham is Moyes ain't doing that. Moyes isn't changing their system. He's asking Calvin to drop in and get the ball, but it's a different situation. He's dropping and getting the ball with his back to the game. Where with Leeds, he was nearly dead center receiving the ball off the goalkeeper at times, facing the game. So you could see what was ahead of him and you could play out. It's a different system. And that's where I think the issue for Calvin is with that, is that I don't necessarily think every system suits him. But if you're playing a single pivot, Juventus were talked about looking at him at one point as well. And I remember thinking, it's a perfect move for him. It's perfect for him. It's exactly the system that they play. You do very well there. But the system has to suit the player, or the system has to be changed to suit the player. And that's the thing with Calvin for me is right now, I wouldn't say no to bringing Calvin back in, but I don't think it necessarily suits his strengths.
Any other thoughts?
What happens to him then? That's not a disagreement with you, Jay. I just wonder what. It's
a tricky position. He's called out as manager as well. Like he's called out Pep Guardiola for calling him overweight. Like that's happened very recently where he did an interview at West Ham. You're done. You're not.
I just mean, where does he go? Who plays?
I don't know.
Who plays the system?
Arsenal did. Arsenal did for a bit, and then they brought Rice in. Villa kind of play it to a degree, and Villa might be a good fit for him. It's not to say that if Leeds go into the Premier League, Leeds don't change the system. Like Leeds don't decide to have an out-and-out number 6 that protects.
I think we'd have to change the system realistically, Joe, because this system wouldn't, it wouldn't necessarily.
I think
work
you get exposed.
Yeah.
I think we could get exposed, especially against better sides. I think we could get exposed with faster players and against bigger sides. I think maybe he could fit that, but I do think it's for me it's a single pivot or it's not a Calvin for me.
Yeah,
I tend to lean with you, Joe. I think it's really unfortunate that, and I think the only way anybody sees the best out of Calvin is him recognising that he does need to be back over back over here somewhere. Whether it can happen realistically is another question. I don't think financially we would be able to afford it, no matter if we got promoted. I mean, obviously, we'd
He'd be
have to be
cheaper
playing
down
in the
there,
Premier
Luke,
League.
wouldn't he? Though after 2 bad
would be.
seasons, his value's gone down.
I'm thinking more salary and everything else that goes with it. I think what is he on about? Probably $250 a week or something stupid.
It's 180 a week or something like that. He's on.
Is it? Yeah.
6-year deal
would
it
he
was
take
as
a pay
well.
cut to come home?
I think he potentially would, yeah.
It wouldn't be a huge pay cut. I mean, he might be going down to 100 grand a week. Like, you know, poor lad. You know, you're only on 100K a week now.
We'll see.
Like,
Do
do you
know
know
what?
what?
If that creates unrest as well, though. If he comes in, you know, he's sort of getting back in, and then he's definitely coming to play, isn't he? So, and we've actually looked. It's one of the better areas, isn't it? Really, was in centre mid, like in terms of players.
Imagine him and Archie though.
But this
him and Archie.
There seems to be this notion that
could that work? Sorry, Joe. But could that work with Gray? Because Phillips would be holding a little bit more. Gray's a little bit more likely to want to push on, isn't he?
Yeah.
So would that be maybe more? That's more so. Because I think Gruev just does that anyway. I think he cheats a bit, and I say this all the time. But he comes and gets it off centre backs all the time, so he's sort of cheating that, like being in the middle of the two centre backs role anyway, which I think puts Kamara in a bit of a predicament sometimes. That's a different thing, but
I think as well, like this seems to be this thing, like, and I think it's just recency, like bias, like saying, oh, well, he's not better than Gruev, or he's not better than Kamara, he's not better, and it's like, come on, man, you don't think
you're comparing apples with bananas, though, because it's a different division.
But
very different.
Well, this is my point, Joe. You can't tell me if Calvin was with us this season, he wouldn't be absolutely fucking smoking the division. It's mad. But listen, we're just talking about it because it's a topic. Like, don't chill. You know, everyone gets, I don't want him back and all this sort of stuff. But for me,
you don't say no to good players. Also, though, if you've got a chance to get them, you don't say no to good players. Nobody says no to good players.
Yeah.
He got a lot of stick before, and he's getting it again now, isn't he? That's all it is. Before he had his good couple of seasons, the Leeds fans were really not too polite about him, so it's just going back that way.
People say returns don't work as well, but David Baye did all right, didn't he, when he came back?
David Baye never go back, isn't it? But you're right in certain situations. But again, maybe it's as simple as you've said, Luke. Maybe it's as simple as he's a home bird, he needs to come home. Maybe it's that simple that all of a sudden he's happier in his life, and all of a sudden that replicates itself in the pitch. It's very possible as well.
Agreed. Right, I think we'll end it there, folks. That was a really good chat, a really good debate. There'll be something out a little bit later on at around about 8 o'clock that I've pre-recorded, so please make sure you check out that. Make sure you check out City of Leeds fans, Joe Leeds United The View, and of course Ought to Know Better as well. Now I have put a redirect for this stream as well. Mr. Joe Blackburn is going live after this, doing a Football Manager stream. So don't adjust your TV sets. Going to go straight on over there. Just while I remember as well, folks, this weekend, Mind Charity in Leeds are doing a get-together for gaming stream to raise money for Leeds Mind. I've said that I will take part. Obviously, I'll be busy Sunday, but on Friday and Saturday, at some points throughout the day, I will be on Twitch, either playing FIFA COD or doing a Football Manager myself. There is a link for you to donate. I've not promoted it as of yet. We'll wait till tomorrow. But yeah, just keep an eye on my socials for when I'm going live so that we can... Listen, I've set a target of £200. Hopefully we can achieve that. But yeah, that's tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday, 15th, 16th and 17th. So if you can support us, please do. And it's for Mind, which is a great charity, and it's a Leeds-based charity as well. So make sure you support that. And yeah, we'll see you in a bit. Peace out now, folks. Bye-bye.